To Knicks Chicks family, welcome back to another episode. I'm your girl, Lady and the Chef. I'm rolling solo dolo today, but it's all good. Shout out to Vlogs. I do want to recap the Knicks last few games and what they've done before All-Star break, which is a much needed break that the Knicks need currently right now. Um, and yeah, just go over like pretty much the Knicks defensively, which has been one of my biggest I guess you could say concerns for this season for the Knicks, even though the stats say otherwise, right? So I think for the eye test, especially for me, some games I see great things defensively from the Knicks, and other times I don't see, I guess, where the Knicks fall short, right? And one of the biggest key things that I've been speaking about is consistency with this Knicks team, and just them being able to be more consistent. And I'm looking forward to see what this team does after All-Star break, which is happening this weekend. I know Jalen Brunson did struggle in a three-point shooting contest. I didn't really watch much of it, so I'm not even going to sit here and hold you and make it seem like I watched it, just because I don't know. I'm going to check out the actual All-Star game, but I feel like All-Star weekend has been quite unentertaining enough for me to really watch. I'm just being very honest. But I know Diva Locks was watching it and she was texting me while she was watching it. So, you know, I'll get the full on from her and her thoughts later on, and see what she thought about the game itself. But let's kick off with the Knicks. The Knicks did win let me actually get my banner ready here. So the Knicks did win 3 out of their 4 games. We'll go back to the Toronto game. The Knicks beat the Raptors 121 to 115. That was back on Tuesday, February 4th. Then they played Boston February 8th. The Knicks did lose that game 104 to 131. And then they played again February 11th against Indiana. They won that game 128 to 115. And then they won February 12th against Atlanta in an overtime game. And the Knicks barely won that game 148 to 149. A win is a win, and I'm going to take it. But we've seen the Knicks do this as well, where they've had these really tight, close games. But I really wanted to go and speak on that Boston game, because this was the game that I was really looking forward to seeing what the Knicks would do. Because, yeah, the Knicks beat Atlanta, they beat Indiana, they beat Toronto, which are teams that the Knicks should be beating, quite frankly, right? And shout out to them for winning those games. However, the Knicks still seem to struggle against those elite, better teams in the league. And I think that that's something that we have to really talk about, as far as how do the Knicks beat these teams that are, your Cleveland, your Boston, your OKC. How do the Knicks figure out a way to beat those teams? Because this seems to be an issue with the Knicks, and they struggled. The first quarter of that game against Boston, the Knicks got outscored 19 to 30. The second quarter, they were able to pick it up. They finished 29 to 31. Third quarter, but again, if you notice the trends, the Knicks got outscored every quarter. Third quarter, the Knicks scored 28. Boston had 35. Fourth quarter, the Knicks scored another 28. Boston had 35. Tatum went off for 40. Pritchard, I don't know why the Knicks can't figure out how to guard Pritchard. He's another one. He does whatever he wants. The Knicks can't figure out how to guard him. And in that game itself, the only person that really did anything was Brunson. He had 36 points. Josh Hart had 17 points, 8 rebounds. Karl Anthony Towns played 28 minutes, had 9 points, 9 rebounds. Mikal Bridges, I'm not sure what's going on with him. And I think I say that because with the absence of OG Anunoby, I'm looking for Bridges to step up and go to work. And I don't know, he's just fell flat lately. I'm not sure what's going on there. And same thing, Deuce McBride, not sure what's going on there. He's getting the minutes. He had 35 minutes in that Boston game. He only had 8 points. And I spoke about this the last time we went on live. I don't know what's going on with Deuce. He seems to be a bit flat as well. He hasn't really been, I don't know. I feel like he hasn't been the same ever since he had his injuries. And sure, he's playing. He's getting up and down the court. He's being physical, but he just seems to be flat. I don't think he's really given the Knicks enough what he should be given this team. And then Cameron Payne played 19 minutes and had 14 points. He's been playing pretty well. And the same thing with Precious Achua, who didn't play well in that game. He only had 4 rebounds, 3 points, played 33 minutes. That was just a game where the Knicks overall was flat. And, I was talking to Diva Locks about this game, and I saw I'm in a group chat text with some of the other fellow Knicks content creators. And one of the things I saw someone pointed out was that, well, we didn't have OG Anunoby and we didn't have Mitchell Robinson. And I remember I was on the phone talking to Diva Locks about this, and she was literally about to say that, and I let her get that sentiment out. The thing is that I don't know. You guys already know I'm very harsh in my feelings about the Knicks and the way they play. I'm tired of hearing the excuses. Like, I get it. Last year we had a man down situation. We had guys that were out, and there was a lot of injuries. And yeah, you didn't have Mitchell Robinson, you didn't have OG Anunoby. But then you're telling me two things. You're telling me that you can't beat them without those two guys. So none of you, because by looking at the stats, the Knicks couldn't figure it out. You couldn't figure it out. Only one guy really did their thing. You shot 42% from the field goal. You were 9 for 24 from the 3-point line at 37%. Surprisingly, the free throws were actually not that bad because the Knicks have been not that great from the free throw line. You got out rebound 48 to 30, 16 assists, 1 block, 9 steals, and you only had 9 turnovers. And the points in the paint wasn't really that much between both teams, but still, there wasn't enough production from either side from other guys on the team. So I don't know. I just feel like with the Knicks, I've said this before and I'll continue to say it. You're saying because you didn't have OG Anunoby and you didn't have Mitchell Robinson is part of the reason why you didn't win the game. But I challenge that with, okay, so if Mitchell Robinson, let's say he was playing in that game and you had OG Anunoby, would the outcome have been different and would the Knicks have won that game? Or would it have still been a possible loss, maybe not as bad of a loss? But I really challenge and throw that question out there. Would the Knicks have won that game if they did have Mitchell Robinson? Do I think that he would have made an effect on that game? Yes. Having Mitchell Robinson and OG Anunoby possibly. Because OG Anunoby at times can be flat as well, like Bridges. But do I think that having Mitchell Robinson there would have made a difference? Yeah. But again, I still stand by what I've been saying. Once you get Mitchell Robinson back in a game, it doesn't mean that the defense is all of a sudden going to be a lot better. Will it get better? Yeah. I think having him, who's more of a defender than Towns, yes, absolutely, it makes a difference. But I just think that a lot of Knicks fans are so focused on Mitchell Robinson coming back and being like this savior. And I think that on one side of it, yeah, you have a guy who will be freshly back, will have fresh legs. He'll take some time to get his footing. I've said this before, but I think that you got to focus on the other 4 guys who's on the floor with him at the same time. Like, are you going to also play defense? Because he's only one person. So I don't know. I just think that the Knicks have to figure out how do you beat the teams who, are a bit better than you. And that's something that the Knicks have to figure out. Like, how do you get past those teams that are ideally better than you, And I think one of the biggest problems is that the Knicks defense has been very uneven. The Knicks defense hasn't been it hasn't been solid, right? I think this was the issue that the Knicks had last year as well, is that the defense just hasn't been solid. And the defense will always remain the central question for this team. Neither Brunson or Towns are great individual defenders. Brunson is what, 6'2" with a 6'4" wingspan. So there's only so much of a positive impact on defense that Brunson can have for this team. Towns is adequate in some matchups, right, for this team, and he can make a positive impact on the defensive end. But his lack of lateral movement and inability to guard on the perimeter sometimes causes issues on the defense for this team, right? I will say, though, that both Brunson and Towns, the combination of the two of them, it's gotten off to a strong start, and it's been a great so far this season. I'm not going to take away from that. Considering this is their first year playing together, they're playing really well. Do I want to see the pick and roll more? Yeah, absolutely. But the pick and roll works when they utilize it. And I think with both of them signed to long-term deals with the Knicks, there's still room for improvement. And I'm looking forward to seeing the improvement with both of them, as well as the other guys on the team. The Knicks roster, they have 3 quality defenders on the wing with OG Anunoby, Bridges, and Josh Hart. And then you have your other rotational guys like Precious Achiuwa and Deuce McBride, who are solid defenders as well. But the defense, I don't know. I think the defense has been modest at best with this team. It hasn't been horrible. It's gotten better, but it still needs to get better than where it is currently, right? And the thing is that when you, again, I spoke about this at the top of the show, when you look at the stats, what's on paper, it says otherwise. The Knicks are tied for 17th in defensive efficiency, right? Yielding 113 points per 100 possessions. So, again, the stats don't lie. Just like they say, ball don't lie, the stats don't lie. But I think where I'm trying to get to with this is that the weaknesses on defense have shown up against the better teams in the league. I think you see some games where the Knicks play the better teams and the defense is really good. And then I think when we watch the Knicks play against those better teams on other games, the defense is just not there. It's not there. And again, I don't want to use excuses or hear excuses about, well, we didn't have this player, we didn't have that player, or the Knicks was playing on a back-to-back. These guys are professionals. This is a professional sport, a professional league. You have to be prepared that sometimes you're going to be playing back-to-back games, right? And I think also the difference is that this season we don't have like a slew of players who are dealing with injuries like we had last year. And I get that, yes, we got rid of some pieces. And so the Knicks have to, they're gelling now. They're playing better. The continuity looks there. They're still in a growing phase, and that there was some steps that were taken backwards because you had to get Bridges, you had to get Towns here. So I get that. You got Cameron Payne here. And just also Tibbs figuring out different rotations. It seems like Tibbs is still playing around with that as well. But yeah, I just think that when we've seen the Knicks play against Boston and OKC, and you see guys like Tatum and SGA, they've looked to involve Brunson and Towns in every pick and roll scenario, right? As they are supposed to do. Now, I don't want to just sit here and seem like I'm bashing the Knicks on their defense, because there are some upside, truly. And I like to give credit where credit is due. Towns and Brunson have put up great numbers this season. Towns already has 5 40-plus point nights this season and is second in the NBA in rebounds at 13.4. He's been great. This has truly been an A grading of a trade that the Knicks did. And kudos to the front office for bringing Karl-Anthony Towns here. He's been a great addition to this team. He's bringing value here. He's been an asset. I like what I'm seeing. The toughness, the grittiness. He wants to be here. He's happy. I like what I'm seeing from him. Brunson, he's ninth in the NBA in scoring, averaging 26.1 points, and has had at least 40 points in 3 different occasions. And he had a high of 55 against Washington back in December. And we know that Brunson can go off and give you 40 plus points in a game. That there's no question in that. And I do remember when Ian Begley from SNY highlighted back in December that Brunson and Towns pick and roll has given opponents trouble, which is true. Again, that's why I say that I would like to see Brunson and Towns utilize the pick and roll a lot more, because when they use it, it's very effective and it works. They just need to be more consistent and use it more, because it really does give teams trouble when they utilize it. And there's that trust factor there between Brunson and Towns, knowing that he can utilize that more, because Towns has an array of options he can go to under his belt offensively, whereas Mitch, you kind of just have to use the alley-oop so he can get the dunk, or an easy quick layup. But Towns' perimeter shooting, it opens up the floor more for the Knicks, which is something that we haven't had, because we haven't had a player like him here that's allowed Brunson to have a little bit more spacing on the floor and to go ahead and attack. So yeah. And then on top of that, Towns has helped the most when Brunson is actually not on the floor. So when Brunson's on the bench, Towns is even more effective on this team. Whereas last year, the Knicks struggled to score when Brunson was on the bench. Like, he can barely sit on the bench long enough because Tibbs had to put him right back in, because the Knicks were having issues either losing the lead, or, the lead would dwindle and get close. And then, you'd have to put Brunson back in the game. But in 497 minutes with Towns on the floor and Brunson on the bench, the Knicks are outscoring opponents by 15.7 points per 100 possessions. But I think the question that I ask is, how do the Knicks figure out a solution, or what's the solution that they need to figure out if they're matched up with an elite pick and roll player in the postseason? Because this is what we have to think about, right? Like, I think where the Knicks are in a good spot, right? You're sitting at third. You still have to be careful. You don't want to, you want to continue winning and getting wins under your belt and not losing too many, because you do have Indiana. They have a nice margin above them, but still, some teams tend to go on a roll and start getting some wins under their belt and trying to close in the gap and finish off the second half of the season strong after All-Star weekend. But I think that regardless, the Knicks making a postseason, I think the question is to get past the second round, because we know the Knicks can make the playoffs. We know that they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to get into round one. You get to round two, knocking on wood, everyone is healthy. How do you get past second two if you have that matchup against an elite pick and roll player in the playoffs? How do you get past that? And I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the chat, or those of you in the replay gang. And shout out to the replay gang and those of you who are checking in live, and those of you who are not in the chat but watching live. Shout out to you, and again to the replay gang. That's a question I really want to know. Like, again, even after this live, please leave me a comment, because I'm really curious. Like, what's the solution, and how do you stop those other elite pick and roll players? And I'm talking even with a healthy Mitchell Robinson back. How do you stop that? What is the answer? Like, what do you do to be able to combat that, so that way you can get past those teams like your Bostons, like your OKCs, and Diva Locks, she's very confident that this Knicks team has Cleveland's number and can get past Cleveland. And my argument to that is that I don't fully disagree, but there's a little, for me, a little asterisk as to me, these guys look like a different team than who we faced off against in the playoffs. Again, I could be wrong. I don't have all the answers. And maybe with Mitchell Robinson back, they're not going to be, I don't think a lot of teams are going to be expecting that when Mitch comes back, right? That they're going to see a different, revitalized defensive presence and energy from this Knicks, which is what I'm looking forward to seeing. But I think that the real question is, or one of the questions should be like, how do the Knicks stop those teams when they exploit Brunson and know what he's going to do? They stop the pick and roll, and then we have teams that have those guys, that two duo team that can utilize the pick and roll against the Knicks, right? I think that that's the biggest thing that we need to discuss. So, yeah, I just feel like, you know, we got to figure some things out for this Knicks team. I'm happy that the Knicks are on a break. The Knicks don't play again. The next game is not until Thursday, February 20th, where they play Chicago. And then they play Friday. So they're doing it back-to-back. And then they play Friday against Cleveland. I'm especially going to be locked into that Thursday game, Thursday and Friday. And actually, no. The next 3 games are going to be really, really key games for the Knicks. So they play Thursday against Chicago at 7:30. Then they play Friday against Cleveland at 7. That's an away game. And then they play Sunday and matinee game at 1 o'clock against Boston. That's an away game as well. Chicago has beat the Knicks twice now. The Knicks have to figure out how to beat Chicago and how to stop Kobe White. Cleveland is on a tear. Are they beatable? Absolutely. Just like Boston is beatable, but the Knicks have to figure out how to beat them. And the Knicks are going to face off against Boston now. What is this going to be? The upcoming game, the third matchup so far. The Knicks are going to be playing against Boston on Sunday. And then they have a little break until the following Wednesday against Philly. But I said February and March is going to be crucial games for the Knicks to see how they can get past and how they do. Like, how do they finish off February strong? How do they finish off March strong is going to be key. But yeah, the Knicks, to me, you have to beat Chicago. You have to beat Cleveland. And honestly, you have to beat Boston, because you can't allow, out of a series, a regular season series, if you're going to play Boston, this is going to be our 3rd time. Let me see. And then we played them. We don't play after Sunday. Next Sunday, we don't play Boston again until April 8th. So that's four times you're meeting up with Boston. The Knicks have to figure out a way to get these next 2 against Boston. You have to figure out how to beat Chicago as well. I'm going to give my predictions for the next 3 games. I'm going to have the Knicks I'm going to have them at 2-1, because I feel like one of these games is going to be a trap game. So 2-1 for me. And yeah, we'll see. But I think that one of the things that I was thinking about too was with Mitchell Robinson coming back. Mitchell Robinson slated to come back in March, right? A few things that's going through my mind with Mitchell Robinson coming back. One, I'm happy that the Knicks haven't rushed Mitch to come back, right? I want him to take his time to come back, be fully healthy and ready to go. When he does come back, I'm assuming he's going to be on limited minutes to get back acclimated into playing live game scenarios, right? There still hasn't been an exact timeline or date of when he's coming back, but it's slated for March. And then I think that the other key thing is just making sure he remains healthy throughout the remainder of the regular season, and so that you have him for the playoffs. And that when he does come back, now I'm curious how that looks offensively and defensively for this team, right? I'm not necessarily worried about Mitch because I know what he can do. I'm saying it in regards to like Brunson, who, as the point guard and the captain, you have to make sure you're orchestrating and facilitating and getting Mitch the ball, right? That's important that he gets touches and that we get him the ball where he's dominant in the paint. And then not wasting possessions when he's able to get us those second, third, fourth chance opportunities as well, right? But I'm curious to see the Mitchell Robinson effect that he'll have on his team, and what does that do for this Knicks team moving forward? Do I think that Mitch will make a difference defensively? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's part of the reason why the front office kept him around. They could have, made their moves. To me, it would have been silly to do that, because then who would you have brought here if you traded Mitchell Robinson? There's really no array of options of players that you can go with and bring here to this team. So I'm curious to see the effect that he has on his team. And I'm really hoping that it trends in a stronger defensive presence for this team, right? So I want to see the Knicks get better defensively. I don't worry about this team. I've been saying this from the rip since the start of the season. I don't worry about this team offensively. It's more defensively that I want to see this team improve. And they're going to get there. I know it's going to take time, but I want to see them like finish this season off strong. I still stand with the Knicks. I would love to see the Knicks win a minimum of 55 games. I had them, I think, at 57 or 58. And I don't think that that's pushing it too far. Why can't they win that many games? Like why set the bar so low? They can win that many games. They're trending in the right direction. So yeah. And I think that it just brings me to my point with the Mitch Robinson effect. Just overall, how this team finishes off the second half of the season after the All-Star break. I'm looking for the Knicks to step it up, to come out strong at the start of games, to come out strong after halftime, to step up defensively, to close out on the three-point line, to be more aggressive in the paint. I think I'm looking forward to seeing a combination of Towns and Mitchell Robinson on the floor together, to seeing Mitch playing with other guys. I'm looking forward to seeing a bench step it up. Like I said, Bridges has been flat. McBride has been quite flat. So I'm looking for these guys to get back and get locked in. You know what I mean? And the Knicks just stay on course, take it game by game, and gather that consistency that I'm looking forward to seeing as well. And just finishing off the regular season strong, staying healthy, of course, is key, is number one. And then seeing how this team does in your first and second round. And I still believe that there's that pressure there, that seeing this team get out of the second round. We know that the Knicks can make it to the second round, but can they get out of the second round? I think that's going to really be dependent on defense and not seeing just two guys carry the weight, and Brunson and Towns. It's going to take an effort collectively, because what happened in Boston, this is what I'm saying, it can't just be Brunson giving you 35 plus points and then everybody else, giving 9. Maybe you get 17 out of someone else. Bridges can barely give it. That can't happen. It can't happen. He's going to need help. And even if he's off, okay, cool. But then the other guys got to step up. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what this team does. How does the Knicks finish off this regular season strong? How does this Knicks figure out how do you stop the other elite teams in their pick and roll situation and them trying to stop the Knicks utilizing that pick and roll situation as well? And then how do the Knicks step up when they're playing man to man and tighten up the defense, guard the perimeter, stop always relying on and playing help defense? When you watch the Knicks play, really watch the defense. Watch how guys are so worried about helping out and playing help defense and worrying about the perimeter. I spoke about this before. It's actually a little tiring because I don't know if this is what Tibbs wants, or what. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to try to unpack with that, and that's a whole nother conversation we've had before already. So yeah, we'll see. Shout out to Hit 'em Up NYNJ. Happy Valentine's Day to you too. So we can beat OKC and Cleveland, just worried about Boston. I need to see it to believe it. I'm not doubting this team, but this was the issue that the Knicks had last year. They couldn't beat certain teams. We had about 3-4 teams last season that was an issue for us that we just couldn't beat. And again, yeah, I am a little worried about Boston. You haven't beat them yet. Cleveland, I think the Knicks, I feel out of the three, I feel confident and comfortable with the Knicks defeating Cleveland. OKC and Boston, the Knicks have to figure out how to beat those guys. They've been struggling against those two teams. And this was the issue that we had last year again. So to me, you can't wait until you get into the playoffs to try to figure out how to beat those teams. You got to try to figure out how to do it in the regular season. So the Knicks they still have work to do. There's still room for improvement, absolutely. But they have to figure out how to beat OKC, Boston, and Cleveland. The defense going to get much better when Mitch returns. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. I really am. And the reason why I say that, it's not in a place of doubt and negativity. It's in a place of, I don't want it to fall heavily on Mitchell Robinson, is what I'm saying. I need other guys to contribute. Right? I'm not even honestly worried about, I would say, like a OG or Josh Hart. It's the rest of the guys that I want to see step up and help out and be just as aggressive and getting after it defensively with Mitch. Like, I know what Mitchell Robinson could do. I'm not worried about him, but he's not the end all be all. It can't fall on one guy. Just like offensively, it can't just fall on Brunson. It has to be a two-way street. It has to be a collective team effort on both ends of the floor. So we'll see. You said you got them at 56 wins this season. Yeah, I had them at 57, 58. It's no reason why we should be settling for 50. Let's step it up. Let's stop minimizing and this team and people feeling like, oh, we're 50, 51 wins. Yeah, let's do better than that. Let's do better than that. The goal is to keep getting better every season and keep getting better every game. So Tibbs needs to get Sham and TJ Warren involved in the second unit. Need more scoring. I feel like Shamit is getting the minutes. He has to just go after his. He has to go after his. I don't know. I don't. And I don't know. I've spoke about this before. I don't know if the whole Shamit issue is him personally, which I do think he's part of the equation. But I also don't know if it's like Tibbs not utilizing guys like Shamit who are good shooters and not really incorporating the good shooters in the offense so that they can get their shots off well. And this is why I say Shamit just has to be aggressive and just go after his and get his shots off. You know, he does a great job, Shamit, on the defensive end. He hustles. I love what I see, but I think offensively, I would like to see him be a lot more aggressive and less passive and just shoot. Just go after yours and do what you need to do. Rondu 1973 said, good afternoon. It takes perimeter defense to shut down Boston. Yeah, I agree. And this is part of what I said with the Knicks having uneven defense. Their perimeter defense. If the Knicks don't address the perimeter defense and just the one-on-one defense, period, the Knicks are not going to go far in the postseason this year. I don't care how good they're doing and staying in third and winning games and finishing off the regular season strong. If you can't play perimeter defense, they're not going to go far. So, yeah. We play Chicago next. And we've lost to them twice. We play Chicago February 20th. That's Thursday. Then we play Friday against Cleveland. And then we play Sunday against Boston. So these next 3 games for sure, I'm for sure going to be locked in because I want to see what the Knicks are going to do, more importantly, defensively. 3 teams that the Knicks have struggled against this season. And Chicago, the last time we played them, Chicago looked like guys have never had an injury in their life. Flying up in the air, dunking the ball. It just didn't look good. So I love Josh Hart, but DeJounte Murray would have been that missing piece. What do you mean, like having DeJounte Murray offensively? You feel like he would have been the missing piece? Because Josh Hart, I think Josh has really worked on his game. His shot looks a lot better. He looks a lot more confident, and his shot, the shots that he's taking, and he's added that along with the hustle and the other plays that he does, and the rebounding. And I'm also happy he's getting a rest as well. But I don't know. Do you mean like having DeJounte Murray on the floor would have gave us a little bit more scoring offensively, like a guy who can, whereas Josh is more of like the scrappy guy who can give you some of the points, but Murray is more of a scorer. Yeah, I thought the Knicks were going to try to get Murray, but I guess they had plans otherwise for another move. Yeah, Precious didn't play well against Boston, and that's what I mean. It can't be one guy carrying a team against Boston, carrying the whole team against OKC, carrying the team against Cleveland, carrying the team against Chicago. It can't just fall on Brunson. Like, Cat has to step up. Bridges has to wake the hell up. Deuce has to wake the hell up. These guys are like, they're flat. You gotta wake up. I'm hoping with this break, guys will come back rejuvenated, fresh legs, they're ready to go. And again, you come back and playing a back-to-back. You play Thursday and Friday. Chicago, Cleveland. Then you have a one-day break, and then you play Boston on Sunday. So, I don't know. Yeah, the Knicks. Yeah, the Knicks are doing pretty well as far as their record. I mean, I think the Knicks have done a great job surpassing where they were last year. And I think it's important that the Knicks do not slip past that 3rd seed. The Knicks need to stay in 3rd and not slip up to 4th, or even past 4th. I don't see them doing that, but I think it's crucial that the Knicks stay in 3rd for sure. Gotta close with Hart instead of Mitch, though, because of free throws. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Another one of my gripes about Mitch, that while he's improved on the free throw line, it can be make one, miss one at times instead of giving you all 2. But listen, forget Mitch on the free throw line. The whole team has to make sure they hit the free throws. The Knicks haven't been the best at the free throw line this season. We've seen games where they've missed 7, 8 free throws in a game, and that's crucial. You know, that's a difference maker in games. And not to mention last year, I hate to bring up old stuff. Like it just, but last year, Josh Hart, I believe when we were playing Philly, he missed like 2 crucial free throws. So I think as a whole, guys just have to, they're free, knock them down. But yeah, that's a good point because teams will like to do hack a Mitch and send him to the free throw line. So yeah, but that is my time today. I wanted to come on. I haven't been on in a while. The Knicks are still on a break, which is nice. I want them to rest. Right now, the Knicks are sitting in third in the East at 36-18. They're on a 2-game win streak. And Indiana and Milwaukee are neck and neck. Indiana sitting at 4th. They're 30-23. Milwaukee sitting in 5th at 29-24. And Detroit is right on their butts at 29-26. But this is why I say the Knicks have to stay the course with Indiana and Milwaukee sitting in 4th and 5th. Things can shake up and teams go on a 5, 9, 10 game win streak. You gotta lock in. You gotta stay focused and lock in. So yeah, it's crucial that the Knicks continue to keep winning games. These next 3 games are gonna be very interesting and crucial to see what this Knicks team does. And yeah, right now the longest win streak is Denver. They're on an 8-game winning streak. They shot up to 3rd. They're 36-19. So hopefully the Knicks can continue on this win streak and keep racking up some more wins. And the Knicks are actually, it's crazy because the Knicks are a pretty good away team as well. They're 17-8, and then at home they're 19-10. So got to pick up those numbers a little bit more. But listen, Chicago's sitting at 10th. They're 22-33. If the Knicks don't beat Chicago this time, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to be annoyed. You got to beat them. They're sitting at 10th. They're not even in the top 5 in the East. They're in 10th, 22-33. They're on a 4-game lose streak. So you know they're going to try to capitalize, knowing that they beat the Knicks twice and to beat the Knicks. You can't allow that to happen. You can't allow teams like this to beat you. You can't. So we'll see what happens with them coming up. I'll be on Thursday to do a pregame before we play Chicago. This is one of the games that I'm looking forward for the Knicks to win. And yeah, we'll see what happens with the Knicks playing this next game and these next 3 games actually, and see what happens with their record. And just throughout the second half of the season, the Knicks just staying the course and staying consistent. But yeah, thank you all for rocking with me today on this rainy Sunday. I hope some of you or all of you have off tomorrow and can have an extra day of rest. And shout out to the replay gang. Shout out to those of you in the chat, those of you who are watching live and not active in the chat. Shout out to Hit 'em Up NYNJ and Rondu 1973. Shout out to Diva Locks as well. And I will see you guys on Thursday. Have a great week. And go Knicks, as Diva Locks always says. And until next time.